Welcome to Live from the Space at 100th Taylor Street, and we are honored today to have Tim Easton. So Tim, welcome to the show. Jeff Fasano, my co-host, your good friend.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, honored to have you, Tim. So let's start with this, Tim, because you are a troubadour. You have so many adventures, so many stories, and I want to get to as many as I can. Mm-hmm. But let's start with the serious stuff and then lighten up.
Okay.
You are a man of a big conscience, a big heart. You've always had the world at large in your lyrics and in your mission as a human and as an artist. Mm-hmm. What is keeping you up at night these days that you share with your daughter?
I didn't start out that way, having empathy and whatnot, but you know what? I just back up to my mom sent me to this program, which I ended up in the Dominican Republic at like 16 years old, working in the barrios. My mom and dad were kind of this like, the radical Catholics, the Peace Corps type thing. So I got to do that early on, and that like jolted me out of whatever self-centered path I was on. But then I became a street musician for many years overseas, and that then just kind of like sent me off in a Woody Guthrie troubadour mode. But what's keeping me up lately, like I've had it this week, I've jolted out of bed actually about 4 or 5 in the morning, and both times I thought my daughter was calling my name. It turns out it was the dog was scratching at the door or whatever, and I opened up her bedroom door. I'm like, did you just call me? She's like, no. It's like 5 in the morning.
Yeah. And
so I think I'm having a little bit of anxiety about going back out on the road again since the pandemic has ended it's not ended. Let's say that. It's not ended worldwide, but since the quarantine has slowed way down in North America, I've just had a really powerful year with my daughter, powerful year connecting and just being able to go just work on art and stuff with her and just school work and everything. And I was a troubadour, rambling man before, and I missed one birthday in 10 years, but that's still enough to just kind of get me today a little bit. The anxiety of being gone and missing something now as she enters the tunnel of adolescence or something.
Sure.
It's starting to, I'm the youngest of 7 kids.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was spoiled. That means I was spoiled. It's like I didn't have much alone time, you know what I mean? And so I'm having a little anxiety. I think what's keeping me up is not so much the world at large, because I've shut the news down. I'm on a news blackout, man, right now.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I gotta focus.
It's pretty liberating, isn't it?
Yes. I love media. Media's great. Glad we're podcasting away our lives, but let's face it, man, like, if I need to know something, I'm gonna find out about it. Right now, following the 24-hour news cycle, or ever since the election / end of the pandemic, it was hard. It got really hard to listen to the news every hour on the hour.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So. You know Rachel Hurley?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you followed Rachel on Facebook and her news updates?
I have, and I've seen some of her things. Yeah. See, that's it. Social media alone, then, where it could bring anxiety if you're overdoing it there. And let's face it, during the pandemic, aside from learning how to bake bread, and put on weight or whatever, we've learned to, watch the internet, watch screens so much, right?
Yeah.
And so I remedied that by a lot of walking in the woods, and with my kid, we hit the woods a lot. The Beeman Park here in Nashville is just beautiful, and we were there all 4 seasons of the last, 15 months or so, 13 months. So, yeah. The last year we've been there countless times, really.
Yeah.
And would cross paths with fellow Nashvillians that were doing the same thing, trying to get out in nature during the pandemic. So hope everybody that's listening today is feeling all right about their re-entry into society. I realized that I was traveling too much, and I need to slow down, even though when this airs, I'll be somewhere deep in Alaska on a fishing trip.
Yeah.
But I'm not about to let go of the Alaska fishing trips just yet.
Amazing. And let's segue there into one of your adventures. So we can go to Alaska, we can go to busking. Like you busked in the streets of Paris, for example, with Beck.
I
Right?
did. I was very lucky. Beck was on this, his young roundabout. Just his father was Al Hansen of the Fluxus movement in Germany, sculptor. He was kind of friends with John and Yoko and part of that scene. And was kind of a radical artist. Build sculptures out of cigarette butts and garbage. He was out there.
Yeah.
Fluxus movement, Fluxus. And so Beck was on his way to visit his grandpa, and then he ended up staying at my apartment. I was an au pair. I was a nanny.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was the old guy at 24. Beck was 20, 21, 19. He had a Gibson guitar with no case, just a shoestring, and he knew Woody Guthrie songs, man. He right away I was like, this guy's got something different,
Yeah.
And the fun story to tell about it is true, that is outrageous and fun, is that we did go to Jim Morrison's grave, me, him, and a guy named James Rowe, with our guitars out. We were young men.
Yeah.
It was within walking distance of my flat in Paris, where I lived for a year. And we went there. We met 3 girls from Iceland, and brought them back to my apartment. We cooked them spaghetti, and then when we put our guitars on to play, they left. They're like, these guys. Yeah, they were just like, thanks for the spaghetti. You guys are weird. We're going. Yeah,
Oh my God, I love that.
it was just probably strange music to them, this folk music. And Beck was, good inspiration right off the bat to follow your own path, I think, And
Yeah.
so that, is one of many wild adventures. I was a street musician for 7 years on and off.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of podcasts right there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a lot of
Exactly.
15-minute chunks.
It's a series.
Yeah, there were times of glory, and then there were times when I was sleeping on the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, there was times. I always go in my mind to Spain, because that was just a time. Like, I was 23 years old. I got a job playing with this old expatriate African American sax jazz guy, and like we were paid in hash and beer. That's basically how we earned a living. We'd get some money if we were really lucky.
Yeah.
But it was just a wild time, and I hit it pretty hard, and I ended up getting pretty sick over there, because I ran my body down, and I got alcohol poisoning, but so today I returned to Spain in a different way.
Sure.
But I see those same streets, the same spots where I used to play, in front of this restaurant in Barcelona called Los Caracoles, the Snails.
Yeah.
Right? Great restaurant. Almost a tourist trap today, but it's a beautiful restaurant. Great restaurant.
Barcelona will kick your ass.
Right,
They're
yeah.
not
Oh
ready
my
yet.
God. Barcelona. So I'm down there playing. They used to have chickens exposed. Chickens were roasting on the thing. Like, I could smell the chicken. I'm starving. I'm like playing down the street from the chickens, trying to get money so I could go buy some chicken. And like the last couple of years I was in Spain, I walked up on that same corner and I saw the chickens, and I was just mesmerized, by the thoughts of. But that street is where like drug dealers and stuff are. So I'm standing there. A guy comes up to me. He's like, "What do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want? What kind of drugs do you want, or whatever?" And I'm like, "No, man. I'm just looking at the chickens."
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm gonna kill you." And I was like, "No, quiero solo mirando los pollos." I'm just looking at the chickens. And he's like, "You're looking at the chickens?" And he's saying this to me in Spanish, like, "You're a dead man. You better keep walking." And I was like, "Yeah." So, like that's like the kind of thing I get there. And I was all through Italy, all through France, all through Holland, and then I ended up in Prague after the Berlin Wall came down. And that's where then we could end up, in series of podcasts of like being in Prague when it was still Czechoslovakia, and it was like the 60s.
It's like you find a way. You were in Russia, in the
That
Red
was
Square
recently.
right before the world closed, right?
Yeah,
In the Red Square?
That was recent, because I worked with this Forum for Cultural Exchange.
Right.
And so I basically represented America and folk music over in Russia. And they booked me in this beautiful tour that just happened right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
I was playing like theaters with like really good jazz bands. The Russians love jazz. They love American blues music. The whole world does, It's like our music and jazz, our classical music is jazz, and our blues, which came from suffering and slavery, enslavement and mass oppression, and Africa was born, this music was born here, that it affects the whole world. And that's a powerful thing when you're in a small town in Russia, which is not a small place, like 12 time zones. And I covered all those time zones and played beautiful gigs over there with people that just, there was no politics discussed. Nobody brought up our president at the time because they didn't want to talk about theirs right now. nobody wanted to talk about it. So it's just like, we're not going to discuss that, man. We're going to talk about music.
Cool.
And the State Department was involved in it. So like I was, not to be too romantic about films and what you might think about what's going on in Russia.
Yeah.
I almost said the Soviet Union, but I've been fascinated with that. I've been to Cuba as well, and I was in Prague right after the Velvet Revolution, so I've seen the damage that authoritarian states have caused firsthand, and then I was in Yugoslavia before that civil war, so even though I was a young man and not very aware of what was going on politically there. Like there was about to be a civil war. I was in the cradle of where both world wars have started. It's like I was kind of naive as a kid, but music was the thing we had. I was playing the same country blues stuff. Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee, Doc Watson, Muddy Waters, some Bob Dylan and some Rolling Stones and some Beatles too, because you got to bring them in with the blues and then play a Beatles tune or something to help fill the hat.
So, dude, when are you going to write your book?
Yeah, I've been working on it.
When are you going to write your book? And I tell you, one of the things I've learned along the way, is we all need to tell our story, just like you're telling your story right now. There's so many people who can learn from our story. So many people who can learn from your story. So, when are you going to write your book?
Well, I published a book of poetry during the pandemic. And then before that, I did another book of poetry. And when I went to Russia, I did write for No Depression. So if you Google No Depression, Tim Easton, Russia, you're going to get my From Russia with Love articles. So I wrote 4 essays for them. I turned that into a book called Folk Collusion. And I made this weird record in a hotel room in Russia too. That's just a CD release. And I'm working on it all the time, but I still feel like I'm still in the creative mode. You know what I mean? Like I'm still making stuff. Like I have a new album coming out this summer. I'm still a workaholic songwriter. I'm still hungry. I didn't break up to the level of some of my good friends. And now I'm still kind of getting into it. Like I'm not a famous person. I'm not an infamous person. I get to travel the world and play music, but I still have something to say musically in that way. But thanks for egging me on. You're right, Jeff, because it's like you tell your story through capturing moments of film and light and stuff. And I appreciate you guys inviting me on here because it warms me up to like talking about this stuff, but I still feel like I'm living it. I'm still doing it.
But Tim, there are so many, even right here, now, the stories that you just told in the matter of 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's a novel.
It's about your life experience through all of that.
Yeah.
That is your story that people can read and go, oh wow, I want to experience that. There is something that people out there can learn from our stories and our experiences.
Okay. I'll pitch this to you then.
So if it's not, so that takes it all, like, it's not about me. I'm telling you my stories and my experiences with the intention of touching somebody, like your music.
Yeah.
Like your music touches and opens people up. Your story also, you're telling your story through your music, but it's also your story, the people would want to sit down and go, oh wow, what he's experienced.
Yeah. I appreciate it. Here's the deal. I've been compiling this thing called 50 Rivers, okay? 50 Rivers. So I'm using my experience as a fly fisherman or a fisherman to tell, each river tells a story about my life.
Oh, cool.
So that is in the works. I'm on river number 1 right now.
Hey, listen,
The
but you
Elk
started.
River, yeah, the Elk River flows through the unfortunately named Lynchburg, Tennessee, which is where they make Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
So the river that provides the water that makes world famous whiskey also happens to give a habitat for trout. It's a beautiful river. And so I'm trying to tell the story of rivers and my life and my family's life.
Beautiful.
I am starting to do that. And that also enables me to then go fishing on 50 different rivers around the world.
Yeah.
As the project builds, my
avid
friend in New
fisherman.
Zealand is inviting me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to go to New Zealand.
wanna go to
So
New Zealand.
I'm using my life still to work to build more stories. And also, I still think I'm like the 24-year-old busking back on the streets of Paris. I like, only when I see myself in a mirror, I'm like, whoa, yeah, you better get working, better get cracking.
So you start in upstate New York.
Yeah, the Niagara River. I was born next to the Niagara River,
Yeah,
and that
exactly.
is in the first song of the new record. And I notice now I've got river songs all through my life. There's rivers, and the river to me is a spiritual thing today. Like, it's moving. It's way more powerful than you. It will take you away if you're not careful. Certain rivers up in Alaska, you fall in them, and that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
And so it's the river is go with the flow is an expression with the river. So it's basically, it's a very circular thing. The river, the rain hits the mountain, trickles down, forms the river, goes out to the ocean, back up in the rain. So water and the river thing is coming to be a big part of my story, and I am telling the story. I'm just getting cracking on it. Thanks for also just getting me.
So hold that thought.
feeling
Hold that thought, and we'll get to, because I want to ask about Alaska. I want to ask about the rivers, and I
Yes.
want to ask about your fishing. But why don't we play a song?
Okay.
And then we'll continue. With the nature part of it.
I want to play a gambling song because I'm not a gambler, but I wrote this song in Las Vegas, which is there's a hotel there called the Four Queens.
It's still there.
Oh yeah, it's been rebuilt. Skipped all the good stuff, she took straight up with the pill. Now she's underneath the table, licking dollar bills. Took you to the country, but you will never win. Said the queen of clubs just can't get clean. She traded silver, traded up for gold. She sold the soil when the dirt got too old. She'll make you travel, cause you know just what it means. Well, the queen of spades lives in New Orleans. You're gone too far with your money, far enough with your clothes. Put your rings up in the air so that everybody knows. All you wanted to go second class, what did you expect? Said the queen of diamonds is a long train wreck. Every now and then you're satisfied until the end, and all the king's horses come and trample you again. Or you may look forever, you will not collect. When the queen of hearts is at the bottom of the deck. Said the queen of hearts is at the bottom of the deck. The queen of hearts is at the bottom of the deck.
Woof. Damn.
Country blues right there.
Country blues and that beautiful guitar called, and you call it Paco,
Yes,
right?
this is Paco. He was
How long have you
named.
had it?
I've had this guitar since the '80s. This was my original. Basically, it's a Gibson J45, and I got it used in 1987 for $100 and 2 no-name electrics on trade, and I basically have had it ever since. And that all these markings that are on it were made by myself, except for this one right here. I handed it to a drunk man in Ohio dropped it and made that one
You know,
particular.
it has soul. It has soul, that guitar.
Yeah,
like
this
it has an
guitar is.
energy.
It's named Paco. A lot of people presume after Paco de Lucia, and that would be cool. More or less, the guy that named it Paco was a Deadhead, and the Grateful Dead was on tour when I was living in Paris, and the Grateful Dead came and played. I didn't go to the show, but I slept as many hippies on the floors of my flat as I could. We had a lot of wine, and there was a wine cellar attached to the apartment, because I was working for the Minister of Agriculture at the time. He was the Minister of Agriculture. I won't say his name. I could just say the year. You could find him, and his two sons that were 14 and 10. And I was in charge of them, right? Mm-hmm. And their wine cellar was attached. So I had all these hippies over. We had a good time. The next morning, one of them got up and said, "Hey, does that guitar have a name?" I said, "No." He said, "Paco." So he had just come from Spain, and he named my guitar Paco. And that's been its name.
That guitar has seen a thing or two.
So where'd you get that?
I got it in Columbus, Ohio. Yeah, Columbus, Ohio, at a folk music store. And the guy, he could have charged me rent for all the times I came in and play it. And I will say, when I came to buy this guitar, and I played the Doc Watson's Deep River Blues, which is basically a guitar player's way of telling a guitar salesman of acoustic instruments that you're serious.
Yeah.
And you mean business.
Yeah.
That's Doc Watson's Deep River Blues. I'm still learning how to play it. And if you look up Doc Watson on YouTube, he says it took him 10 years just to get it together.
Yeah.
And he kind of created a new music with that. He took country blues and two different forms and the picking of Merle Travis.
Yeah.
That Travis style picking, and basically made up that song. So if you're out there and you're trying to buy a guitar right now, learn the Deep River Blues. It's on YouTube. Figure it out, and then go in. And when you do it, you might get a discount.
You might get a discount.
It was like $500. I got it for $100 and two shitty electrics.
There you go. I love it.
So all of these stories need to be in your book.
They're going to my book.
From now on,
great.
every time I see you walk in the streets of Nashville, Tim, I will
Hey man, get home and work on your book. Yeah.
Work on the book. So
You know
Jeff,
what? I will.
how did you meet Tim? Because when I met you, the stories of lore that you've told me about Tim Easton are they live in my heart at this point. How did you two meet?
when was
Americana Fest.
Was it Americana Fest? So it was.
You took pictures of me and my daughter.
10 years ago at Americana Fest at my portrait sessions, my very, very first portrait sessions at Americana Fest. And Tim was there, and we're shooting, and that's when I met his daughter.
Yeah.
And his daughter was
One and a half,
maybe. And
you have a special place in your heart for Tim. The way you talk about him is different than the way you talk about any of your other...
you know what, it was that day, but we've seen each other folk alliance.
Yes. He's been a good motivator for me.
There you go. I mean, clearly.
A guy like me, I'm living up in my songwriter brain all the time, and without the calendars that have arrived and are I would space cadet. I'm self-proclaimed. I will space out on stuff, and especially at Folk Alliance, gets really busy.
Yeah.
So it's good to have the taskmaster too. That's write your book, show up on time. It's these are also polite things to do. For
so
people.
that first time that we met, I'm shooting Tim. It was this guitar.
Yeah.
And his daughter was over to your right or something, and he looked over. This big smile came on his face, and I went click, and that was my favorite image from that Americana Fest. That was great. I sent it to you, but subsequently we just had your wonderful stuff that you're doing right now at City Winery. It's cool.
We cross paths a lot, and the City Winery thing's a big deal because you guys know out there listening to this that Jeff has basically the staff photographer there, the house photographer, and his work is on the walls there. And it was cool of you to come by last week and basically shoot my daughter and I again. She's there. She's 10 years old. We got to take a picture again. Nikki Barber was there. People that just fill up a frame really nicely. Nikki Barber, and the band was there. A bunch of long-haired, bearded dudes.
That's awesome.
They take easy to take their picture.
They were just all sitting on the couch, and you get in there.
That's cool.
But going back to like Folk Alliance at the very last January 2020
New Orleans.
In New Orleans, I had Tim booked, like you were like the first or second guy, and he didn't show up.
I'm laughing now.
He didn't show up.
That's what I was alluding to.
So I went,
Space Cadet.
It just, when you're doing stuff like that, none of that matters. It's like, it's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And then I ran into him and I went, dude, where were you? He goes, oh, holy shit, I forgot. And I said, well, just come by and whatever.
Yeah.
And it was the last day. It was on Sunday. You were headed to, I don't know, go to see somebody in the back.
I was hosting a mental health awareness thing. I was in charge of the mental health meeting.
Yeah.
And he's running back to that.
Yeah.
And I went, get in there. And he had his case, and we just set it up, and that's how those things go. And like, it doesn't matter if you get them.
I love that.
And I've photographed them so many times.
Yeah.
That photograph is the photograph that's going into my
book.
Thank you. I think the best way to capture artists is not to tell them you're about to get their picture taken or schedule a photograph. Just personally, it's something about, makeup and all that stuff is fine, but it's kind of fun to catch someone when they didn't know they were going to get their picture taken. But then all of a sudden they're like, okay, sure, and you sit down. And
I agree.
And Jeffrey's got away with the light, and also you're a passionate photographer. When you're working, I've heard the words you use and the way you direct it and the way you get excited about certain things is. Not everybody does that,
True.
I'm sure there are some that do, but I've not heard many that get that speak, because how else are you going to get someone to do something if you don't start cracking the whip and saying what you like and getting them to be motivated as well,
Sure.
Yeah, it's Tim, got to be fun.
We can't tell the story of Tim Easton without talking about Alaska.
Yes.
Because that.
Thank you.
That's such a crucial part. You have so many fans there, first of all. You have like a big, solid fan base in Alaska.
It's a strange place to have a big, but yeah, I love it.
How did it happen? Like, tell us your story with Alaska.
Exactly what happened was that I had a fascination with it, just like most people have a fascination with it all over the world. It's like Alaska. It's just this thing. In America, North America, it's like the final frontier, the last frontier. Space is the final frontier. The last frontier of the American expansion thing, right? So there's that romantic and also violent / gold hungry, quest. And I saw it as a little kid. I lived in Japan my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade year. So at 9 and 10, 11, I saw it out the window because we landed there. My dad worked for Goodyear, and that's why I grew up in Akron, Ohio. So I saw it. So I had this image of these beautiful mountains. First album I ever put out, I'm wearing an Alaska, or maybe second album, I'm wearing an Alaska t-shirt. Alaska promoter calls me, my agent, and says, does he want to tour Alaska? Hell yes, I want to tour Alaska. Ended up going up there, and I was like, this is it for me. I bought land up there. I wanted to return, and I did return every year for 20 years until the pandemic. So I've been there every year. I have really dear friends up there.
What's your routine? Like for the normal.
Man, I will still hitchhike around Alaska. Literally, I will go up there. But today it's people. Everybody knows me, so they're just like, Tim, get in the car. I'll drive you to the thing. It's very because I'm like rental cars are like $400 a day right now in Alaska. Yeah. I'm like, I'll just hitch because I know so many people there, and it's a small big place. So my routine is I go up there and I play house concerts. I play fish fries. I go fishing. It's beautiful. I love the nature thing. It's very spiritual. I have great friends that have great cabins and great houses and great events, and they're great chefs, and they're the least pretentious of all the people on the planet. They're very just kind of you'd never know. You never know really what someone is. You can't. Judging the book by everybody kind of looks this. Fashion doesn't mean as much up there. Yeah, sure, there's some, but it's just people. It's just people. The musicians up there are great, and they're not like in this fame quest.
No,
it's the opposite of Nashville in that regards. But I love this town, and I love bringing a little bit of this town there.
Yeah,
and I've got friends that up there that are world-class musicians, bluegrass players that have come down here and done made wonderful music. And the connection musically is really big. Like the Alaska Folk Festival every April, and then now Salmon Fest, which I played all 10 years of Salmon Fest.
Love that.
So it's amazing. Like Sarah Giroux will headline.
Yeah.
So it's always been a female headliner. You know, Lucinda Williams, Emmylou Harris, the Indigo Girls. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, Brandy Carlisle, female headliner, and then the night before is like a jam band headliner.
Cool.
Like, because it was started by one of the chefs for the Grateful Dead.
Okay.
So it's a big old Alaskan hippie fest, and it's excellent.
That's cool.
It's an excellent festival.
That's a good one to go to.
Yes, it would.
So Tim, let's segue into your new album, and
Cool, man.
and then let's talk about your new single, as we wrap up. Tell us a little bit about it. Like, what's the theme? Like, how was the creative process like? And
I think the theme is, you know, getting to know someone, what you think you might know about them, or you can't judge a book by its cover, and a little bit of recovery. And when I say recovery, I don't mean from vice necessarily, you know, drugs and alcohol. Yes, that recovery from that, like addiction and stuff, but also just recovery from a divorce and a life of just errant vagabonding, wandering all around the world and not being beholden, not you know, saying that you care about your family, but yet you're kind of always gone. And so like not really like following your ideals in that respect, you know, and like kind of a reset that happened for me during the pandemic. You know, a lot of people, it'd be just common sense to them. It's like, of course you don't wander off across the world and take every opportunity that comes to you. You gotta be home more. And I wasn't. I was not a good partner, you know, like in that respect. Like I was just gone a lot.
yeah,
So I kind of, you know, had to turn it around, and now even through divorce and stuff like that, it's like I've kind of turned around my presence and availability as a father. I think being a father is probably one of the most important things I would ever do, as opposed to all this. And we'll get to that part in the book here. But it's like the album is very revealing. It's very personal.
yeah,
And the first song is called "You Don't Really Know Me," and I started off as like a Randy Newman piano ballad, singing trying to do another character song, like the Four Queens character is like, this is a rough and rowdy traveler that I am, but I'm not. You know, I can inhabit this character like Randy Newman, one of my favorites, does. Like he's singing in the first person, but it's not necessarily him. So I started that way. Then I was like, wow, just tell the truth about your family. Like just say something about what they taught you, and then admit your mistake a little bit, and how that shouldn't define your life. Yeah. So the whole album just kind of carries on with that. Cool. There's a song about my daughter, about what it's like to be kind of a wayward anchor, you know, kind of broken anchor that's drifting along. And then there's another song more about social commentary called "Son, My Son," which was written the day of the Black Lives Matter demonstration that happened in Nashville. There's a woman that works in a shop, and I just told her, I said, I'm kind of nervous. It was mid-pandemic. I was like, I'm nervous to go downtown to the demonstration. I'm worried about going downtown, about going outside. Yeah. And she said, son, that's how I feel every day. You know, I worry about my babies and my children every day. That's how it is for me. And I took some of that and turned it into a song about, you know, whatever, coming to terms with the white privilege thing or whatever. You know, I had to kind of like, so I put some of that social commentaries on the record as well. And, you know, it's mixed in there with some love and some wishing, some peace of mind for others that I might have disagreed with. Yeah. You know, over this last difficult year politically. Yeah. There was a lot of disagreement, even in your own family and stuff. So it was like, I don't want to sit in uncomfortable. I want to wish you peace of mind, because that's all I want for myself. Amazing. So there's a lot of optimism on it too, and hope and stuff. Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I have one question for you, because it's what your first single from this new record is. Tell everybody. If you don't mind.
Complete dreamer still. Like trying to work on a decent communicator. Still a workaholic, troubadour. And today I feel like a better father and a better family man and a better brother and a better communicator to the planet. Like instead of trying to tell stories about other people, better at telling stories about myself.
Nice. Beautiful.
Did that even answer it? I have no complex.
It's just
beautiful.
It's just the beginning, Tim.
Right. There's the onion peeling.
I love it, man.
It's just the beginning of the introduction
Yeah.
to your book.
Well, I'm wearing sunglasses on the cover of the album, so it's like there's still something I'm not. Like it was a chance photograph that was taken by the drummer.
Yeah.
In between songs, we were playing ping pong, and he said, "Stand over by that light." And he just took a picture, and that's the cover of the album. But I'm wearing specs, so it's like there's still something that's not quite that being learning to tell your story by also keeping some of your things close to your heart. You can't let it all out there, like some people do on social media. You got to keep something to yourself so that you can continue creating.
I agree.
So that's why I'm feeling the resistance to writing your book.
I know I'm working on it. I've procrastinated. I've slacked on it because the 50 Rivers thing. I don't want to. I don't want to water down. There's a lot of irons and a lot of plates juggling, and when you start to do too many things, one of them suffers.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like me, how many guys out there are playing the guitar, writing the songs and singing them beautifully? Like my singing has ended up suffering because I've been working on other things and not concentrating on that or being inconsistent with that.
Sure.
So storytelling, I want it to be strong. My writing, I want it to be strong. I write every day. I do. I get up, I do the morning pages. I try to meditate.
Do you do morning pages?
Yeah, I do the morning pages and I try to meditate, But lately the morning pages were like, wow, I don't really have time.
Yeah.
Did you write that in your morning pages?
Yeah, I've written it I've written it. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got to get going.
I've done 3 lines.
Yeah.
That's cool, Tim. So why don't you take us home with one of the new songs?
Yeah, man. Let me play the new song. The very first song from the new record, which is also the single.
Cool.
All right, it's called "You Don't Really Know Me."
And before we do this, folks, I listened to this song about 5 or 6 times today with that killer band that he has. And if you haven't heard it by the time we air this, run, don't walk to listen to this song.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely.
The band is called Upstate Mojo, and they are some of my friends from upstate New York, and they came in and we recorded this live in Nashville, Tennessee. I personally don't think there are many records being made like this in Nashville right now that are kind of loose, wild, and the doors are open, so there's a lot of what we call sound bleed going on. So if you were to isolate my acoustic guitar track, you would hear the whole band in there. So it's
cool.
pretty
Pretty neat.
yeah. It was take 3. I remember that day. So big shout out to the band Upstate Mojo for helping me get this track alive like this, and for you guys that are having it on here. It's called "You Don't Really Know Me." You don't really know me. You really know next to nothing about me. I take you by the hand, help you understand. You don't really know me. I was born by a raging river to a mother that did deliver 6 children to no harm. I was the 7th she held in her arms. Sisters taught me how to tie my shoes. My brothers taught me the deeper river blues. One told me I could write a book. The other showed me how to bait a hook. You don't really know me. You really know next to nothing about me. I'll take you by surprise, help you realize you don't really know me. You don't really know me. Sometimes you learn from your mistakes. Other times you stubbornly nurse the pain. Either way, it takes more than one mistake to define a lifetime or trace a lifeline. You don't really know me. Really know next to nothing about me. I take you by surprise, help you realize not just all the miles in between all the goodbyes, but will never end, and how I will defend the freedom that I need, the love that I believe, the feeling underneath, the lines that go between, to give you some idea of what I really feel. You could get to know me. You don't really know me.
Spectacular song.
Thank you. I haven't played it solo much, so this is kind of getting started with that. I probably could have played the harmonica during the solo. The solo is a long solo.
That was perfect.
For a folk song, you know? But on the album, man,
it's an anthem.
Packy B, great guitar player from Albany, New York, he played that solo and every other note in that song live.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very live take, and thanks for going out and checking on it, checking on the song. You Don't Really Know Me, Tim Easton. You know, it's basically, it's on the, you'll find it.
And the album is out on...
If you have a Pocket Oracle, you can find this.
The album is out on what date exactly?
The album is out at August 27th.
August 27th.
But the single is out now.
And
it's going to be followed by a single called Real Revolution and another one called Speed Limit. And we've already made the videos for those, so those will roll out as the summer goes on. I'll be fishing in Alaska. I'll be fishing in Alaska, and the record company will take over the social media stuff. I will be off the grid for a little bit. Yeah.
Well, Tim, what an honor.
Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Thank
you for coming, Tim. That was a pleasure.
Yeah, we got the work done.
Yeah, thank you.